Balls to the Wall, episode number 20. Your host here, Kenny Matthews, with my sidekick over there, my man, Billy Martin Jr. How are you doing?
I'm cold. It's 22 degrees in Arlington, Texas. So I'm frozen in my home.
Yes, we are filming here at the DFW market, and yes, we have a little white stuff on the roads, a little ice, a little snow, little cold temperatures for us anyway. Wind chills in the teens and maybe in the single digits tonight or tomorrow. So I know we're not used to this weather, but it's kind of nice. It did let us know that winter's around, because what was just 2 days ago or 36 hours ago, we were wearing shorts, and a shirt, on Tuesday. And it seems like we just have one season. It's called hot. And we'll throw in an occasional spring day into you, but yes, it's kind of crazy in the Metroplex. Hopefully, and with last year, with all the power outs and things of that nature, hopefully we'll keep this thing calm and we'll have our power on. So, but we do appreciate you guys listening to us on here on Balls to the Wall, and we'd love for you guys to subscribe to us on YouTube and Rumble and Anchor, and also we'd love for you guys to like us on Facebook and Twitter. Please, we welcome all your comments on here. We'd love to have your fresh ideas. Let us know if we stink. Let us know if we're great. Write us a review. Let us know. We'd appreciate it. We'll get back to you. And we always embrace that, because we want to bring you guys the material that you want. But I think it's pretty easy to have a couple topics this week, because, Mr. Martin, we had another thrilling 2 games this past weekend. I mean, if you think about it, the last 6 games have been separated by a field goal. And this late in the playoffs, I can't think of anybody who's any more happier than the NFL office right now, because those ratings are astronomical. And so next year, when you get the charge, these advertisers, that got significantly higher for those commercials next year just because of that. But hey, we have to start with a place that I think you and I both didn't think was those little Bengals were going to come into Arrowhead and walk away with a big win, and especially after you're down 21-3 in that game, and especially with the Chiefs at the 1st and goal from the 7-yard line, I believe it was, with 11 seconds left. You're thinking that the Chiefs were, at worst case scenario, going to kick a field goal to go up 21, to go up. At that time it would have been going up 14 points, because the Bengals did get a drive in. But anyhow you look at it, Chiefs spit the bit, don't get the 3, then the 3 and out, on the opening drive of the second half. And that's 18 unanswered points by Mr. Joe Burrow and the crew. And that, like I said, tip of the hat to them, because Zach Taylor was 5-26, I believe it was, the first 2 years as a head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, and now he's representing AFC in the Super Bowl. That's quite a turnaround, isn't it?
They may have been gals a long time, but by God, they're freaking studs now. And if I'd have said to you last week, we'd be sitting here with no GOAT named Brady, no Mahomes, or no Rodgers. I mean, if I'd have said none of those guys were going to be in this game a week ago, I mean, you'd have laughed hysterically at me, right?
Yeah.
There's no way.
I would have bet money that one of those guys would have been in the Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's been crazy to think that the number 1 seeds were knocked off in the first games of the playoffs. What we always want, home field advantage. They're no longer there. Then you've got stud quarterback in Mahomes, gift wrap being able to host another AFC championship game in Arrowhead, nonetheless, against a team that fought tooth and comb just to get there the week before.
Yeah.
And now for Mahomes, I think he was one of the first sleepless nights after a football game was this past Sunday for him. It had to have been. I'm not going to lay all the blame on Mahomes in that game. He gets a large sizable chunk of it. But I'm also blaming Andy Reid on that too there. I mean, the play calling was horrific after they scored their first 3 TDs. I mean, they stopped running the football. I mean, the McKinnon guy, he looked like I mean, he looked like Ed Podolak the other day in the first half, running the ball against the Bengals. And, and you had a team dead and you allowed that rattlesnake to just kind of keeps hanging out in that corner and hanging out in that corner. And you got bit pretty dang going good, man.
Yep. It was amazing. I mean, can the Super Bowl possibly be as good as these last 2 weeks? I mean,
I can only hope so.
and I was so lucky last week. I literally was watching the games in the same room with Roger Staubach and Drew Pearson.
Wow.
And Gil Brandt and Doug Donnelly and Burton Gilliam, Norm Hitchkiss.
Wow.
It was an unbelievable cast my son and I were with. And
there's some heavyweights right there, buddy. There's some heavyweights. I mean, they really are. And I mean, if you think about the greatness of Gil Brandt, he was instrumental in that conversion of bringing the AFL over to the to the NFL at that time. I mean, he had his fingerprints all over that signed, sealed, deal that was delivered. Gil Brandt was one of the most intelligent evaluators of talent was Gil Brandt for a number of years. And he was the first one to incorporate film work, into that and trying to get his players involved in things. I mean, he was revolutionary going as technology would get better. He was always seen to be one step ahead. How many times do you keep a coach in the same spot for 28 years or whatever it was that Coach Landry was here? I mean, that's a record that will never be broken. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that, because normally you don't hire really young coaches that stay in one place for 30 years. It just generally doesn't happen that way. And in this day and age that where society wants everything now, they're not going to be willing to allow you to kind of go through 6 and 7 years of losing like the Cowboys were doing in the early 60s. And but yeah, that's a loaded room there, Mr. Martin. I would like to have brought me a little piece of paper and say, hey guys, can you please sign here?
Think about this. Before Landry got his job with the Cowboys, he was an offensive coordinator for the New York Giants. Do you know who the defensive coordinator was on that team?
Vincent Lombardi.
How? I mean, arguably, right? Definitely 2 of the top 5 coaches in NFL history.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, and can you imagine them being on the same staff? I mean,
and talking about doing it in different styles. I mean, you're talking about different styles completely that were almost just as successful either way. You have the stoic Landry that showed zero emotion, and you had the highly animated Vincent Lombardi on the other sidelines. But yes, I mean, that's just unbelievable. If you think about that, and you include like a Frank Gifford and a Johnny Unitas who played in that game, and Weed Eubank, who has won 2 Super Bowls, who's considered a very, 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 not maybe a Hall of Fame coach, but he's considered a pretty dang on good head coach. A lot of talent that was on that field back in the day, wasn't it? Just a little. Yeah. I do want to talk a little bit about Andy Reid, a little bit about this. We gave him props for having taken 2 teams to 4 straight, conference championship games, which I think is another feat that'll be very hard to duplicate. But you know what he is now? He's now 2-6 in those games. He's lost 6 of those games. He's lost 5 of those games at home. So, there is some chinks still in the armor on that. Getting to that game, he's not really busted through enough to maybe garner being in that Vince Lombardi, Tom Landry range. Yeah, he's going to be in that Canton Hall of Fame. I'm not saying he's not a Hall of Fame coach, but there's also that little upstairs room, that VIP room. I don't think Andy Reid's going to be stepping in there unless Mahomes and him stick around for a few more years together and he gets a couple more of those bad boys. But that was a horrifically called football game. You took unnecessary chances by not getting the 3. You should have just kicked the field goal, knowing you get the first drive in the second half. You get a 3 or a 7 on that first drive in the second half, that game is over. We're not talking about the coolness of Mr. Burrow and how the Bengals were able to come back at that point in time, because that makes them completely one-dimensional. What it is, it kept them in the game, and then Cincinnati was able to run the football. And let me tell you something, there's another star in the making, and that's Mr. Burrow over there in Cincinnati. If that guy gets an offensive line, Billy Martin Jr., we're going to be talking about him maybe being up there in Canton one day, because he's that good. He's that good. And
I wonder if he'll have to lobby for himself to get in like he did to get to LSU. I mean, that's such a great story. And it's something every kid needs to hear, because he wasn't that guy. He had to lobby and send his own film and get them to take him seriously. And he just kind of helped them win it all. And looks like he's not trying to do that in the NFL. So
yeah, he's trying to get another ring, that national championship football ring he's got. Now he's trying to go and put that Super Bowl ring on there. And all this, and a graduating class hasn't passed yet during this time yet. So, I mean, that's pretty good success. And let's not forget, here's a guy that came off an ACL injury at the end of last year. There was a lot of doubts that he was going to be able to be ready for training camp, being able to be ready coming up to the season. He didn't play any preseason games. So, all that, we got to get our wide receivers timing, and the quarterback's got to be out there in the off season. This is crucial for the offense. I'm not hearing that anymore, buddy, because here's a guy that didn't do any of that last year. And now and in 3 days, he's going to be in SoFi trying to get the Bengals their first Super Bowl championship. He's a pretty special guy, no question.
Well, and so the guy that's going to be lined up against him, the guy you and I kind of had our doubts about a little bit.
Yes,
right?
We did. Yes, we did.
And
I'll eat some of that crumb.
I guess he showed why we're not NFL coaches or making player personnel decisions. But Ali, I obviously I'm kind of cheering for him. He's the Dallas guy, and knowing that Clayton Kershaw is his best friend, and that his first couple of postseason experiences were not very good, right? Yeah. So I really kind of want him to get that monkey off his back right out of the gate almost. And I have a feeling we're going to see Mr. Burrow a lot. Yeah. And
we don't know how many more opportunities Mr. Stafford has. He's
right.
He's
not old, but
he's an old 33, I would say, just for the 13 years, 12 years he's been in the show. So it's that's a long time to be in a show. It's not, unless he's Brady, where he gets better, it seems, as the age comes on. I'm not going to keep banking on that's the norm going forward. But the one thing about Stafford you got to give him credit for is that I said he knew that all the pressure was on him before the playoffs started. Well, I guess the last, especially after losing the last regular season game to San Francisco, that allowed San Francisco to stay in the playoffs. He knew that he was brought there for one reason and one reason only, and that was to win the Super Bowl. Goff took the Rams to the Super Bowl. Now he lost, but as Ness is just saying, Goff, we don't think you can win us a Super Bowl. We think that Stafford guy can, and so that's why we want him here. So there's a lot of pressure on him to play, and he's very fortunate that Mr. Tart doesn't have any hands for the 49ers, because I don't think that could have been any easier interception. And for him to drop that ball, gosh, I was amazed that it really went through his hands that much. it wasn't reminiscent of Jackie Smith to me because, Jackie Smith went down to the ground a little bit, and all that. But I'm like, you have to hate that catch, Billy. You have to make that. And
he looked up. I mean, you see it. He looked up like he thought he was going to get hit or something. I don't know, but that you're right. That play right there puts him in that category. It's kind of interesting. Goff was from Marin County, which in the Bay Area is pretty much the Highland Park of that area. I mean, that's the wealthiest area in the Bay Area probably, and it just hit me. So you've got Stafford from Highland Park and Goff was, and if they miss on this one, maybe they need to get somebody from a little bit rougher neighborhood.
And I'm also gonna say I think that maybe Stafford, the Rams kind of won in spite of their coach again. I mean, I said that about Andy Reid just a few moments ago, but I thought McVay called a horrific game that Saturday. I mean, that Sunday, the second Sunday game there. And even Aikman during the broadcast kept saying, why is he chasing things? Why, on the challenge calls? Why is he played not to lose to me, or he was scared. And I don't get why. He's one of the most, aggressive, play calling type head coaches in the league. And he got very, very, very conservative in that game to me. And I didn't understand why. He did not run the football hardly at all in the second half for any kind of success. I mean, he put a lot of pressure. He put Stafford in a tough spot, I thought, numerous times. And I don't know, for the love of me, the week before, that Rams kicker, he couldn't hit it from 47 yards, and he tries the 57-yard that I don't even know if it got to the pylon. I'm going. So that gave the 49ers 1st and 10, from their 43-yard line. They get 3 points there. I'm thinking just pump the football. 49ers haven't been able to move the ball up and down the field. Go up against your defense. He was, to me, I thought he was very shaky in calling the game. And I think he was lucky that his team bailed him out, because I think he would be getting the noose around the neck this week if the Rams would have lost that football game last Sunday.
Well, here's a news flash. Nobody knows this. You're just hearing this on Balls to the Wall. But Tom Brady is going to come out of retirement, and he's going to sign with the 49ers. And
that would be a great story, wouldn't it? The team he always wanted to play for in the beginning anyway would have been the 49ers. And you don't think the 49ers wouldn't mortgage their future right now? They have old Mr. T12 come over there and play next year in 49er land.
Sure. I mean, if you thought about it, really, let him and Jimmy G both play some. I mean, let him give him a lot of rest every time they get a big lead. Well,
I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did bring up Mr. Brady. I do want to say, hey guys, we appreciate if you guys subscribe to us on YouTube and Rumble, and like us on our social media pages on Facebook and Twitter. We appreciate that. And please welcome any comments going forward. As my Billy Martin Jr. just said, the GOAT. Is he going to retire? We had eulogies all day, Saturday and Sunday on ESPN that he was retired. He comes out on Monday and says, no, I'm going to think about it. 12 hours later, he's got a 700-word retirement speech laid out on Instagram with 2 omissions. He doesn't mention the New England Patriots or Mr. Belichick in the first one.
That's because the only reason he won those first 5 Super Bowls were because of Belichick's system, not because he was any good.
Does come back later and mentions things to the New England Patriots fan faithful and all that. You spend 20 years in a place lining up behind center. You would think that might have been the first thing on your mind in your retirement statement, but I felt that a little odd when I was coming, when I went to work on Tuesday, but that's all right. But again, we're talking about the greatest player to ever suit up behind the center is Tom Brady. I hear a lot of talk of Joe Montana. Joe Montana means an awful lot to me. I mean, he was in our wheelhouse of sports. You and I growing up,
Absolutely.
we saw his greatness on the college level. We saw.
And how
his
many
greatness.
times did you say we're never going to see another
Yes,
guy that good? I mean, that.
But we saw one, and I mean, I am a Michigan fan. I hated the fact when he was back there with I can't think of his name, that he was splitting time with the baseball player. Oh gosh, I can't think of his name now, but he was splitting time with him. Brady would come off the bench, pull his hand, we pull away and win the game. I'm like, Tom Brady needs to start the game over there from beginning to end and just be done with it. But he took a franchise that, yes, the Patriots had a couple moments. They got to the Super Bowl in '85. They played the Raiders in an extremely great playoff game in the early '70s out at Oakland, and lost late in that game. But if you talk New England Patriots football and you don't start with Tom Brady, you got issues, because he is the face of that franchise, and there will never be anybody. He's the Ted Williams of the Patriots. There's no question now going forward.
I mean, he's probably better than Ted. I mean,
yeah.
And you and I both love Ted. There's Ted's picture right over your left shoulder. I mean,
yes, right.
here's my picture of Ted. I've got mine right here.
Excellent. Excellent.
I mean,
the best stroke ever in baseball.
Absolutely. I'll tell you something cool he said to me one day. We were having breakfast. He and my father were mortal enemies, right? Because the Yankee Red Sox rivalry was so real back then. But they had a mutual friend, a guy named Bill Reid. He was actually in the car accident with my father. And Bill and Ted were friends. And he kept saying to Ted, "You'd have loved Billy Martin. He'd have been your best friend if y'all had been on the same team." But Ted's like, "I hate that little Dago. What are you talking about?" Because my father used to mess with him, used to start fights with him, because he knew if they got a fight and they both got kicked out of the game, Dad was helping his team, right? And so he finally one day said, "All right, who was your favorite player on the Yankees? Who was your best friend on the Yankees?" "Well, Mickey Mantle, of course. The other guy behind your right shoulder." And Bill Reedy looked at him and said, "Okay, and who was Mickey Mantle's best friend in life?" And William said, "Oh, wow, you got me there. Billy Martin." And he said, "Yeah." And he said, "All right, set it up. Let's go have a drink one night." And they did, and they really did hit it off. And and Ted's such an amazing guy. I mean, probably had the best vision in baseball history, right? He's also fishing Hall of Fame because he could see under the water better than the other guys. He was an amazing fighter pilot because his vision. Yeah.
Hearts.
Oh yeah, but so the guy takes me to breakfast and we're talking about this and that, and he knew I was an agent, and he said to me, "I wish I'd have known about the weights. I would have crushed my wrists and forearms."
Right.
And I looked at him funny. I said, "For more power?" Kind of because not Ted had lots of, "Oh, hell no, I had plenty of power so I could stop my swing when I was full."
Yeah.
And you think about back then, they swung way heavier bats too.
Yes. 40
so,
ounces.
Yeah, so you're in mid swing and you realize, oh crap, it's a changeup. You're done.
Through. You're through. You're done. Yeah. I didn't think about that, but stopping on the. Well, heck, Ted Williams lost 4 years of his prime.
Yeah.
4 years of his prime. To go fly fighter pilots. Airplanes.
Yeah, to go fight for our country, right?
Didn't think any Bob Feller the same way. Yeah, tips there. They're definitely a toast to that. I mean, if you're talking about somebody just knowing how to hit the baseball and what pitches to swing at and where to put the bat in the ball, there's been nobody better than that.
His
With
book's
power.
still the best.
With power.
Yeah, absolutely. And his book's still the best. It's called The Science of Hitting. And, they call it launch angle now. But in his book, he talks about the slight upswing.
Mhm.
Not a level swing, not swinging down.
Mhm.
Because his point is you want your swing path to match the same path of the baseball coming down the hill from the pitcher. So if it's coming down on this path and your swing path is the same, you're going to be in the zone with it longer, as opposed to a level swing or a down swing. And it makes so much sense. But before all the analytics and stuff, Ted was on it. He had it figured out, and he was a gruff guy. He was tough, masculine, swore a little bit, and
He was sorely. He was sorely.
Yeah.
He was. He's a little prickly. There's no question. He was an acquired taste for some. There's no question. And
well, after befriending my father, and then he passed away, Dad did, right, really not long after they became friends. Ted would take me to breakfast.
That's awesome.
When I'd go to spring training each year, and there's a heart in that old surly dude. I promise you that right there.
Oh, and just to sit there and be admired by seeing Ted Williams choking down an Eggs Benedict and talking baseball with you, that's pretty dang on good, dude. That's pretty
good day.
That's about as good as it gets, man. That is. But yeah, you were mentioning, Tom Brady, obviously. Everything he's done, he's got more Super Bowl wins than any franchise, if that tells you anything. 7 out of 10. He wins one with Tampa Bay, obviously, wins 6 in New England. And, I think that when we talked about the way they lost to the Rams 2 weeks ago, when we even mentioned on the cast about, well, does he walk away? He almost brought back another dramatic win, being down 27-3 in that game. In there, does he come back next year and maybe not have all the pieces, a little bit year older, and maybe he goes out where it's a mediocre year? Tom Brady doesn't want mediocre anywhere on his record. He's going out most yards and most TDs passing this year at age 44. I mean, the only person that's probably happier is George Blanda, because he didn't catch him in years played. That's the only one. No, there's been some kickers that have lasted longer than that, but yes, as a player and every down player, George Bland is the only one that's played longer than Tom Brady, which is unreal to me. But yeah, it's a tip of the hat to that guy's career. And as me being a Steeler fan and Ben Roethlisberger having to go up against his whole career basically in the AFC against Tom Brady. Right. Now he has to play second fiddle in Canton and get with Tom Brady, since all the attention will be on Mr. Cool and now Mr. Roethlisberger again. But that's all right. No, I mean, and you know what? And to tell you the other thing is, besides the scams on the football field, Tom Brady stayed out of trouble off the field.
Yep.
And that's really hard to do, to play that long in this day and age where everybody's trying to bring the famous guy down. That he never got caught in that kind of minutia. That's pretty good. Now you can talk about the flake gate and all that other kind of stuff, the tuck rule, and all, I get all that. But being arrested, being in a fist fight or whatever, or being alleged to have been in some kind of a sexual case or whatever, didn't hear peep out of Mr. Cool, Mr. Tom Brady.
No. Well, I wonder if he'll still feel this way after he goes on his postseason vacation. You know he does that. I mean, that's what so many of today's athletes do. As soon as the season's over, they're going to some all expense paid vacation site and just chilling out for a week at least.
Yeah.
And I bet he and Giselle go, disappear for a while.
Sure. Absolutely.
And then we'll find out if he's really retired or not, because at the end of the day, I mean, I saw a crazy stat, and if you guys don't know it, Kenny and I are big on crazy stats. We
Yes.
send each other crazy stat
Love
texts
that.
all the time. And that I think one of the ones I sent you recently was that if you took away all 700 plus of Hank Aaron's home runs, he still had more hits than Wade Boggs.
Yeah.
And it just stuff like that. That's amazing. But Brady's postseason passing yards are like triple the next guy. Like Big Ben's like third on the list.
Yeah.
But if you add Big Ben's and Peyton's, I think Peyton's number 2.
Yes.
I think if you add theirs together,
It's
not even close to Brady.
unreal. I mean,
Yeah.
he's going to have records that, like I said, he's Cy Young's 511 will be here forever. 7 Super Bowls won by a starting quarterback will be here forever. I'm just going to go out on that limb and say that. Just to get to the Super Bowl 7 times is one thing. You're not going to go 7-0, going to the Super Bowl. That's not going to happen. So that guy's swinging at a 70% clip in the Super Bowl in 22 years. Now, 1 year he didn't play because he tore his ACL in the first game. So in essence of 21 years of him starting quarterback, a third of it, he's hoisting the Vince Lombardi trophy. That's real.
A third of it.
A third of it. and three other times he gets second place. So it's like, yeah, I mean, he's left a nice book. The NFL record book is full of his name in it. Passing yards, games played, whatever you want to go, winning championships. And, he deserves to go out. He deserves to go out on his own terms. That's for sure.
Oh, no doubt. Because when were we ever going to hear again, not only about somebody that good at almost any sport, really, but it takes less pay so that you can put a better team around me.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
And I love it, but whose ego will allow them to do that?
And control of your agent to tell your agent, I'm not going to get max money, even though I deserve max money.
I'm saying what?
Do you want to represent me? If you do, I'm going to tell you what I want, and you just sign on the line and take your cut.
and that's the truth. At the end of the day, right? We work for the client. It's funny because I'll get these kids when they're young, and my 4th round Yankee and I were on the phone today, and every other word, yes sir, all right sir. I'm like, Coop, you don't have to call me sir. I work for you.
Yes, exactly.
I know I can't help it. It's all right. But my all-time hero as an agent was a man by the name of Bob Wolf.
Yes.
Okay. He was the last mega super agent in my mind. He had Larry Bird and Wayne Gretzky and Doug Flutie, and he had Dr. J. Right? And he got Dr. J the biggest contract in NBA history at the time. But of course, like it works in all sports, a year later, a couple other guys got even more than Dr. J did. And so he was mad, and he said, look, Bob, I want to renegotiate because I'm the best player in the NBA. Why are these guys making more money than me? He said, you're right, you are. And we got 2 more years on this deal. And when you're a free agent again, I give you my word, not only will you be the highest paid player in the game again, but I'll make sure in the negotiations we make up for these last 2 years in your salary. But we agreed to this deal.
Yeah.
We signed and shook hands, and we got to stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. That's not what I want to do. I'm the best player. I want the best pay. And Bob Wolf walked away from that paycheck. Now you think about that. I mean, I'm sorry. I have values and morals, but I need the money a lot more than Bob Wolf evidently did, because I'm sorry. If that were me, I'd call the Sixers up and I'd say, guys, my client's being a jerk. I know we negotiated in good faith, and I know we did all this stuff together, but this is what he wants me to do. I don't feel good about it, but here I am. I work for him.
Can we open up the lines of communication on the new deal?
Yeah. What can we do to get him a penny more than those other two guys? Can we add another year to the deal? Can we?
That's tough, hey, I think you get rewarded for things of that nature in life anyway, down the road. Maybe it's a setback at the time, but if he's doing the right thing at the right time, for him dealing with his own fortitude that he is. I mean, if he thought he was going to be less of a person by going up to the Sixers and saying, hey, listen, renegotiate this deal, props to him. Props to him.
That's probably, that's one of the main reasons. It's one of the reasons he's one of my heroes, because he had that much integrity.
Yep.
That he just couldn't do it. He said, Julius, we made our agreement. We shook their hand. We signed our names to that piece of paper. And another thing he said to him was, if you'd have struggled this year, if you'd have gotten injured, they were going to continue paying you at that rate.
Yeah.
And
athletes don't understand that, do they? They don't understand that. They don't understand it. It's a two-way street. Like, okay, I'm playing above my contract level. What about when you're playing below your contract level? Are you going to give some of that money back?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm stumped this year. I only batted 210. Here's a tenth of my salary back. No. Nobody's lining up on that. But boy, if you're 10, 15 points above what you're supposed to be, show me that money now.
Mm-hmm.
I outplayed this contract. And speaking of contracts, Tom Brady, this is the one last point I want to make. He was a 6th-round draft pick. So the Patriots got 4 years of a rookie contract as a 6th-round draft pick for this guy. So they got the Brady discount all those years, and then they didn't have to give him a bunch of money in the beginning.
Wow.
So,
I forgot that.
It's unreal. Think about all the quarterbacks that come into this league or signing those major rookie contracts and just bombing out of the league left and right. And here comes Tom Brady, basically almost on a free agent level contract wise. And the Patriots had that at the beginning of it all. Yeah. Unreal. It's major props. It's a great story, and it'll be a wonderful book one day if Brady will ever sit down and give us, him. He can be a little private, to say the least. So I'd love for a book, a tell-all book from him. I think sell.
I can't wait to hear his story about what went down all the time in New England.
Yes, I would love to really know how he felt about his head coach all those years. I really would. Or just going through the quarterback battle with Drew Bledsoe, going through that at the beginning, not getting on the field, when we all know Tom Brady thinks he's the best player on the football field every time he gets on the football field. Sitting back and having to wait pine your time, as they say back then. I would love to know that. And or just the other times when he didn't think he was going to get a contract done in New England, what were those days like? Maybe 10 years ago or 8 years ago. Who was he thinking about? Was he ever thinking about being a 49er, going back home? Now, I'd love just a tell-all book like that, because, man, I probably wouldn't set it now.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't. Yeah. And my last subject here, we'll go briefly on. I know we've gone a little long here. Is man, we've got to mention, because I don't want another week to go by, and maybe we can go into more details next week, so we don't have football this week. But we've got to bring up what Mr. Flores has done to the National Football League with this lawsuit against all teams and general managers. I mean, equipment managers, custodian, I mean, parking attendants. I mean, this guy has gone off on some radical, to say the least, rants about, obviously about him having to lose football games, the not hiring of enough black coaches in the National Football League, being offered from tampering to get a certain quarterback to come to his school with an owner. I mean, we all kind of know all of the gist to it over there. And I know you and I were talking a little off camera here, Billy. I just hope the guy is right, because if he's not right, there's not a basement big enough for him to hide in if we find out any of these allegations are not true.
He's done in the NFL. I mean, regardless, so sham interviews, he called a lot of them, and to me, it's either got to be one end of the spectrum or the other. He either knew he didn't have a shot at any of those jobs and just figured, I'm done in the NFL. I'm going to play this card and call it all a sham and see if I can get him to settle and walk away with some money, because I'm done in the NFL, because otherwise he better have a ton of evidence. And because it's just so hard for me to believe that that's going on in the NFL. I mean, but what do we know? It's just, but why would somebody that wants to work there sue them? I mean, it's crazy. He's done. He's absolutely done. I mean,
no pun intended, he's blackballed now.
Hey.
No question now. And as you and I said, I don't even know if he could coach on the college level now, because these NFL suits, any suit against the NFL can last for decades. Ask Al Davis and the Raiders. This is not this will be settled next August type deal, dude. I mean, it's going to be years upon years of going through stuff and building up a case and deciding to go this one way or another. There's no way that there's any NFL owner that's going to hire this guy. I mean, they're listed in a suit.
It's almost like #MeToo stuff. I mean,
yeah.
I would be afraid to talk to him professionally without having the recorder on my camera.
Absolutely.
On my phone, because I don't want him to say that I did something like that to him, and I don't mean to say he's crying wolf, because we don't know. But it's his life work is getting to the NFL, and he just ended it. It's over. Even if he wins.
Good job this year. He did a good job this year. So somebody probably would have hired him, if not this year, probably next year. You go be a coordinator somewhere this year. You're probably right back there in the loop, like the McDaniels and all those other kind of guys. He just basically said, guns a-blazing, I'm out the door, dude, and I'm not missing anything. He's the only person that, just think about this. This time last week, AB was enemy number one in the NFL. Well, yeah. AB, Antonio Brown now is number two. And it's a big difference between those two now on that list, man.
Antonio who? I mean, yeah, that's, I don't know. I just wonder what we're going to find out about this. Did he do something terrible? Did he say something he shouldn't have to one of the secretaries at one of these interviews, and he heard that she was going to say something, so boom, he blew up. I don't know. It just doesn't feel right to me. Why would you do that if you wanted to continue working in that environment?
Every bridge, every avenue has been torched. I mean, torched. That guy smells like gasoline right now because he burned everything that he could have done. And the only vindication he gets is if what he's saying is true.
Yeah.
That's really it. I mean, yeah, there'll be some kind of monetary in down the line on that, whatever. I get that part of it. But right now, it's all about just vindication for him. I mean,
Well, and they're not going to settle on something like this because that would imply that they're guilty.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you can't. I mean, he drew the line in the sand big time, man. And he made sure, okay, did you see that line I just drew? Well, I'm drawing another one to make sure you know I'm drawing this line. Because that's the way it is now. I mean, there is no circling the wagons. There's no circling back. There's no side interest in there now, buddy. You're on the outside in, and the only way you're going to get ever back in is if your statement's been proven in a court of law. In a court of law and by a jury in a court of law or by a Supreme Court, because it's not going to stop at the lower court levels. It's not. I mean, this will get appealed up and down. I mean, we need to take the before picture of Mr. Flores now, and we need to take the picture after all this is over, because there's going to be a little stress in the face. There's going to be a few more wrinkles in the forehead. There's going to be a few less hairs on the top of the head. And it's going to be great. There's no question.
No, it's this is going to be that book I want to read too, because
yes, man.
I hate to say I don't believe him because I don't know him, but it's hard for me to believe anybody would do that.
Right.
When you're just burning every bridge in that, like, you know, he's got to know his chances of NFL work gone. Probably NCAA gone. I don't get it.
I mean, it takes to me. There has to be some logistics of this that are true.
It
has to be some of it legit, because, like you said, it's too hard to believe that owners would come to you personally and say, please tank football games so we can get a better draft pick, and here's $100K for every game you lose down the stretch. Man, that's that's pretty damning. Or for an owner to come and say, hey, there's going to be this quarterback that's going to be out here in this bay at the certain time on my yacht. I'd like you to be on the yacht with me, even though that's completely against the NFL rules to be tampering with somebody under contract, and your owner's going to be in the middle of all that. Man, that's a lot of risk. That's a lot of risk.
A lot of that's hard to swallow too. But I will say this, as an agent, I'm a baseball agent, right? And I've represented a football player. Actually got reached out to one by your alma mater recently too, that I may be trying to help with. If nothing else, hook up with the right guy. But football agents all break the rules. I mean, they buy their guys lunch, dinner, and stuff like that. They help them get loans. They do things that we don't do in baseball. And it's a different set of rules. I mean, in baseball, we don't want a kid to lose his academic eligibility. Right. Because I don't want him to sign if the time's not right, if he's not mature enough, if it's not enough money for him to walk away from school yet. I want it to be right for so many reasons. And but in the NFL or in football, if a kid loses his academic eligibility, well, then he has to declare for the draft. And so they don't have the same leverage of being able to go back and stuff like a baseball player does. And it's a nice thing, but I considered hanging a shingle with many NFL agents over the years, but because of that, it always scared me off. It's just like I don't want to be associated with the rule breaking and stuff. All I've got's my word that I can hold on to, and so God, this one just flies all over me. I may want to read this book more than Brady's, but
Yeah,
we'll see.
I really would, because if there's any kind of a journal or a list of events and a timeline of all this going through, man, you talk about a smoking gun. Man, if there is any kind of phone messages, text messages, whatever you call that backs up any of this, I mean, that is cloak and dagger, man. That is Deep Throat-esque of the late 60s and 70s, man, Watergate. And I would love to see it. I mean, whew, is there anybody going to say I am innocent? Is there going to be a sign off? I don't know if there is, but man, whew, it's intriguing. It's got the hair on my arms kind of sticking up a little bit, because it's, as we say around here, those are some hot sports opinions that he threw out, man, in the last few days, man.
Absolutely.
It is, man. Well, hey guys, we appreciate you listening to us. It's always my finest hour of the week to be able to talk to my man Billy Martin Jr. It's always a pleasure. Love doing this Balls on the Wall episode with you. I love talking off camera with you. You know how my appreciation for your dad is deep and sincere. Love them as a guy. I was a fan of his well before it became chic to talk about Billy Martin's antics. And he was a Yankee skipper a few times, so love that too. But anyhow, we do appreciate you listening to us, guys. We'll be back next week, hopefully with a thawed out DFW Metroplex by then. We'll just have, we pray. Hope we'll still have electricity this time tomorrow. But again, appreciate you guys subscribe to us on YouTube and on Rumble, and check us out on our social media pages on Facebook and Instagram, on Twitter. We appreciate that. Billy, always a pleasure. We'll do this again next week, buddy.
Look forward to it, my friend.
All righty.